Watch this.
The state of Idaho is installing new guardrails, but not for highways, for AI. AI is still somewhat new to the public with a lot of unknowns. We look at one of the new laws surrounding one of the hottest issues. Rain or shine, you show up. That's the cowboy way. We're going to show you how an annual gathering teaches those lessons to kids that will stick with them well beyond the arena. And a story to some and a point of concern for others. A local school district is ditching 3 books from a new curriculum after a previous book ban put trustees on guard. There is an issue that is dominating the headlines, our conversation with friends and the top of your search results on Google. Artificial intelligence, and using it isn't just for the tech companies anymore. The rollout of platforms like OpenAI and ChatGPT have allowed everyone to take part in the conversation. Whether you're here for it or you long for yesteryear, it appears that this technology is here to stay and will continue to be developed. This year's Idaho legislators created several laws to get a handle on the use of AI, though, and the data centers that house its operations. Laws that will take effect in just a day and a half now. Here's what you need to know. From your faucet to irrigation pipes, water is required for most every part of life. A new law wants to protect where water is going and how much is being used. Data centers use a lot of water to cool off their operations from overheating. Those companies setting up shop in Idaho now have 2 options for how that water is used. They can either build a center that's designed for non-consumptive water use, like a closed-loop system which recycles water, or they can access water through an existing water user. That could be a city water district or sewer district. Next up, a law that's meant to protect ratepayers from high costs while also figuring out how to manage the additions of new large electrical loads. Those loads will potentially be coming from data centers and major industrial projects. Connecting new centers to the electrical grid could mean a major increase for current ratepayers. So utility companies must now submit service contracts for approval, as well as test to make sure those ratepayers are not impacted by higher costs. There are new protections that come with using what's made in those data centers or artificial intelligence facilities. The Conversational AI Safety Act wants people to know that they are communicating with AI, not a real person. So sites like ChatGPT, OpenAI, and Claude, to name a few, must make it clear to users that there is not a real person returning their messages. This new law also requires those AI platforms to create a protocol if a user is suggesting harm to themselves. And if a minor is using the AI, the company should prevent the creation of sexually explicit images or conversation. And a reminder, all those laws that we previewed over the last week take effect Wednesday. If you missed our coverage of any of those, you can find what you need to know at ktvb.com. Now to the 411. Businesses and homeowners across the Treasure Valley are still dealing with the aftermath from this weekend's storm. Crews responded Friday night to the roof collapsing of the Papa Murphy's here off of Cherry Lane and 10 Mile there in Meridian. Today, an employee says demolition was expected to get underway today. As for the food inside, that was taken to a nearby store, so it didn't go to waste. The businesses right next door that are actually connected to Papa Murphy's, incredibly, only had minor damage to work through today. If you're planning to float the Boise River tonight, do not count on the shuttle. Ada County leaders closed any float services because of today's cooler weather. And Idaho is a stroke-safe state. Today, the governor signed a proclamation recognizing that initiative. He signed that proclamation. The goal is to help people learn what a stroke looks like and what they can do to help in an emergency. And that is the 411. Heavy rain over the weekend didn't just flood streets throughout the Treasure Valley. It flooded the arena at the Caldwell Night Rodeo grounds. Now, the rodeo doesn't actually happen until August, but preparations for the event start next month, and a major Rodeo 101 field trip for hundreds of kids had to be moved indoors. But it wasn't a total wash. As Cooper Morgan learned, you cannot put a damper on the cowboy spirit.
For 11-year-old Tate Dobbs, it's a passion he's sharing that was first passed down to him.
It's my grandpa's. Before he passed away, he gave it to me. Now I wear it every single day.
Something he and his twin brother have been around their whole lives.
To help the kids learn about the horses, the ponies, and help them learn how to rope.
They're introducing over 300 kids to farm animals at Rodeo 101. This time in a different setting than years before, after a Saturday downpour left the Caldwell Night Rodeo Arena underwater.
It was actually fully underwater on Saturday, so that's when we realized there was absolutely no way we were going to be able to host the event in the arena like we normally do.
So they moved the animals inside, because this day brings the community together, teaches one crucial thing, the cowboy way.
Having integrity, being a good community partner, being a good friend and a good teammate, and I think that is the spirit of rodeo.
Rodeo 101 started less than 4 years ago, hoping to reach 200 kids. Now it expects to welcome more than 1,000 per year.
I mean, the idea is that these kids get a first interaction with a horse, with a cow, and hopefully they go back home knowing a little bit more about where their food comes from.
And yes, the hats are non-negotiable.
I'd rather they wear them sideways and backwards. At least they're in a cowboy hat.
Volunteers from college rodeo teams to longtime Caldwell Night rodeo hands coach kids through the basics. They can teach discipline.
3. Yes, just like that. I think so. If they want to pursue it and it's something they want to do and will carry on, it'll be good. Oh, good try.
Outside, the arena is still muddy, but Dustin says work starts next week to turn all that standing water back into rodeo-ready dirt before this year's Caldwell Night Rodeo. That means tractors, volunteers, and lots of hours.
All of our community upgrades, all these beautiful new facilities that we have for our fans are for nothing if we are not taking care of our athletes and our animal athletes.
Here we go. Yeehaw! See?
A day like this can be the introduction for some new cowboys, much like the way Tate's grandpa was for him.
Because he taught me lots of stuff, and he was a good grandpa.
Now, over 80 volunteers showed up to help. The Caldwell Night Rodeo Foundation says they're hoping to add a second Rodeo 101 event in the fall and take it out to more rodeos in 2027. If you do end up attending the Caldwell Night Rodeo in August, you'll notice the new $7.5 million expansion, 600 new seats, and just new chutes and everything for the athletes and the fans alike.
Yeah, I saw that arena and I'm like, that is not the CNR arena I remember. That thing was barely held together with baling twine. Good for them. It's always an amazing time where the Cowboys are the stars. And Coop, yeah, that's awesome. Letting those young kids, as we get more and more urban, understand what the cowboy life is all about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you got to experience that as well, right?
Yeah, I rode it a little bit myself. Not as good as those kids, but you know, it was fun. So.
You did great. You didn't get bucked off by the mechanical bull. Well done, Coop. A curriculum planned for Nampa middle schoolers now looks a little different after its trustees voted to keep 3 books off the list. For some members of the board, it's about learning from the past. But for one member, it's about teaching the materials with care. As for learning from the past, how about a phone number that should be burned into your memory? That is 208-321-5614. We'll share your questions and comments texted to that number at the end of the show. There was a new English language arts curriculum in the Nampa School District, and it's missing 3 books that were a part of the initial plan. In their regular meeting earlier this month, the Nampa School Board of Trustees voted to nix these 3 books: Mouse, Patient Zero, and One Last Word. These books would have been a part of the middle school curriculum for English language arts. School Superintendent Greg Russell says he's read up on some of those books and felt while there was value in the text, he thinks some of it could be disruptive.
I agree there are some aspects of Mouse that are graphic, but no more graphic than Night.
Patient Zero.
And Night is a very common read on the Holocaust. There's no way to really talk about the Holocaust and the impact of that tragedy without the details of the tragedy. I don't know how to get around that.
Now, that was from the board member who actually voted against nixing those 3 books. She talked about how there were some graphic things in there, but again, she believed that content was valuable. A review committee of parents and teachers gave their feedback on the plan, with the majority supporting that curriculum. Russell pointed out to the heightened worry over what the district should approve to read, referring back to 2022 when the district banned 22 books after some parent-led concern. Now, during this month's vote, only one trustee member, Stephanie Binns, voted against taking out those 3 books. You heard from her earlier. Maybe we can hear from the Superintendent Russell now.
Discuss Patient Zero, which is a textbook around pandemics. It's actually a fascinating textbook, actually, and it goes through all the pandemics throughout history, bubonic plague, and there was one around the 80s AIDS epidemic. I think that could be a little concerning. And then there was around the COVID, just recent pandemic we had. And knowing that there's some sensitive things around, particularly around COVID, with just students who have had losses and experienced some deaths around that. And then One Last Word is a book on poetry. The book focuses around diversity and equity and inclusion. And there's I was concerned that it may be seen as possibly related somewhat to critical race theory. We know that we have state laws that we're not allowed to teach some of that, and I was worried that somehow that could be misconstrued into that. I don't believe it is, but it was just something that raised a concern for me. Mouse is a really interesting book. It's actually written as a comic book, which makes it extremely difficult for old people like me to read, but apparently children and kids love it. And it uses fictional characters of mouse, so they talk like people, but they're mice, and they're going through World War II and the Nazis and the extermination of the Jews. And it relays history in that way. And so I think it's very valuable in the sense of how it relays history and some of the atrocities that happened, but also there were some graphic things in that as well.
Now, those 3 books will be replaced by already approved reading. On this day in history, the U.S. Supreme Court struck down the death penalty in a 5-4 decision on June 29, 1972. The justices ruled that capital punishment fit the criteria for cruel and unusual punishment. However, it was, of course, reinstated by the court about 4 years later. And while we're talking about the Supreme Court, it's that time of year when they release their opinions, like this very morning when the court denied President Trump's efforts to overturn the jury verdict in the E. Jean Carroll case. Now, we are anticipating a decision close to home in the case of Little versus Hecox. The case came after Lindsay Hecox sued the state of Idaho just weeks after the law banning transgender girls from girls' sports teams passed. That decision could come as soon as tomorrow morning, and when it does, we'll have full coverage in all of our shows.
Well, we are starting the work week and our second to last day of June with much more settled weather across the lower elevations coming off of that wild weekend, of course, Friday evening in particular. Looking outside in Boise right now, we're at 70 degrees, plenty of blue sky, but still much cooler than is typical for the end of June. We should be closer to 90 than 70, but finally this week, we'll see our temperatures going in the right direction. Twin Falls at 69 currently. Look at McCall, though, 49 degrees and some storm clouds over Payette Lake. We have had about 1/3 of an inch of rain that fell in McCall since midnight. Looks like Long Valley is drying out, just those dark looking clouds now over Payette Lake, but you can see out towards Sun Valley and points to the east. We're still seeing a swath of rain there and some very high elevation snow. Most of the I-84 corridor, Snake River Plain, is dry and mostly clear and will stay that way for the next several days. Though tomorrow, I'm giving it about a 20% chance, so a very slim chance that some spots in the Treasure Valley could see a little sprinkle of rain, and we'll likely see more storm activity in the mountains tomorrow. Rain showers and potentially a rumble of thunder or two, as this system will lift off to the north-northeast over the next 24 hours. But then we'll just have what's called a trough, an elongated area of low pressure, a dip in the jet stream, if you will, that will persist for a couple more days. And that will just allow pieces of atmospheric energy to move through, combining with moisture in the atmosphere, and that will allow those isolated showers to pop up. So looking at McCall for the next 3 days, highest chances of the next 3 days for that unsettled weather is tomorrow. We'll warm to the mid-60s in McCall, but off and on showers and maybe that isolated storm in the afternoon. That's across the central mountains. On Wednesday, a lingering spot shower is possible, but I think Wednesday is almost completely dry. And then on Thursday, we'll see more sunshine and temperatures back into the 70s for Long Valley. And that warming trend will hold steady across our entire area. We'll slowly inch back to summer after our very spring-like weekend. So looking at tomorrow's timeline for our final day of the month, up near 80 for Boise, plenty of sunshine out there, but again, with some clouds around, we may have a little sprinkle popping up in the valleys. I don't expect anything major or even anything to accumulate, but just something to be mindful of for your Tuesday. Waking up tomorrow morning across the area, we'll see morning lows right around 50 from Ontario all the way out to Twin Falls, right at freezing in Stanley, still very chilly, so that means our snow level is right about 6,500 feet. A couple more snow flurries around Stanley, not out of the question. We'll warm to the 60s across our mountain elevations tomorrow. Upper 70s with a partly cloudy sky in Twin Falls, and highs right around 80 for most of the Treasure Valley. And we'll continue to warm from there. By Thursday, we hit the mid-80s. Look at Independence Day. Abundant sunshine, highs up near 90, even warmer for Sunday and Monday.
In North Idaho, it is a day of remembering. Family and friends gathered today to honor the lives of Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Battalion Chief Frank Harwood and Coeur d'Alene Fire Department Battalion Chief John Morrison Jr. Both were killed in the line of duty 1 year ago today. They were responding to a fire in the Canfield Mountain area with engineer Dave Tisdall when someone ambushed the three of them. Dave Tisdall survived but was seriously hurt and had to be hospitalized. The shooter, 20-year-old Wes Rowley, had tried to join the fire department. He also tried to join the Army, but was disqualified after failing to follow through on tasks and appointments. Rowley died after shooting himself. Reagan Gallo with our sister station. She was the first reporter on the scene during last year's shooting. Today she returned for the memorial ceremony.
Well, at the ceremony honoring the two North Idaho Battalion chiefs for the first time since the tragedy, we hear from Frank Harwood's wife as well as John Morrison Jr.'s son, who spoke to the crowd thanking them for the community's unwavering support. June 29th, 2025 is a date forever etched into the heart of North Idaho.
Most days the weight of it is almost unbearable, but I've learned to stop looking too far ahead and just be present in the moment.
A day marked by unimaginable loss. But Megan Harwood, the wife of fallen Kootenai County Fire and Rescue Battalion Chief Frank Harwood, told attendees that the day doesn't define her husband, but his heart for public service does.
What defines Frank is the way he lived, the way he served, and the way he loved.
Hundreds gathered in Coeur d'Alene's McEwen Park to honor the fallen, where Joe Morrison, son of late Battalion Chief John Morrison Jr. of Coeur d'Alene Fire Department,
I refer to him as my best friend,
urged the community to take action on gun violence prevention and mental health.
My dad had a quote. He always told me, "Complacency kills," and that's truer than ever. If we are complacent, if we leave here today and wring our hands and say, "Well, that tragedy was a one-off," I hate to say it, but there'll be many more of these speeches given in the future.
The chiefs of both fire departments say this is a somber anniversary, but it's a day to honor the lives of two extraordinary public servants.
Fire chief, to see just the support from the community, it's been pretty eye-opening and pretty impressive.
He did everything he could to help other people rise to the challenge. He trained them, he educated them, he helped them person by person.
Whose legacy will live on, not only for years to come.
The greatest legacy we can give Frank is to keep living the way he taught us to live, with intention, with love, and with each other.
But in the hearts of the community they served. Reporting in Coeur d'Alene, Regan Gallo.
At the start of this month, we launched our new monthly giving campaign, the 208 Way. So far, y'all have raised $895 for Everybody House. The program is based in Twin. It gives back to kids who need food this summer, especially now that school is out. Idaho is such a giving community, and we're asking for just $7 a month. Our sponsor and partner are matching up to $3,000 a month for the nonprofit we feature. Go ahead and scan the QR code on the bottom right of your screen so you can learn more about the 208 Way and Everybody House. A couple of comments today. They want to talk about the curriculum there in the Nampa School District. First, Rod in Boise saying, when have people banning books ever been on the right side of history? Sue in Boise saying we should protect our teens from the truth. Why? We learn from history or we are doomed to repeat it. Also, the supporters of the list and removing those books would say that, well, students can go read those books anywhere, just not in school.